All right, last match against a very talented black belt, Lucas Wilhan. He beat me. He caught me in a triangle choke, and so I'm really happy with what I got to do leading up to that fight. And there are mistakes that I'll talk about in this, but this is the game. You can't win everything, and especially for me, learning how to compete and going up a very skilled competitor, he was able to stay a lot more calm than me, work his game plan better than me, and fuck you, Lucas. I'm gonna come for you again in the future. We're gonna have a rematch. So, cool thing as well with Lucas here is that you can see he is like the same body type as me, very lanky. There's quite a few people that messaged me saying that they were hoping that we would win our first 2 fights each and be able to face each other. And so this is something that also had played into nerves for me, where I was like, okay, this is the fight that I really wanted to get to. And yeah, I know this guy's really good, so I'm like, crap, this is going to be a tall task, no pun intended. So he chose to immediately sit down here and pull guard. I know that he's looking to elevate and try and go into like 411 entanglements. I've seen this before in competition. Like I think he had competed in a BJJ Fanatics tournament a long time ago. Like he had some stuff that I was able to watch, and I was like, this guy is very talented. So I was looking to make sure that he could not control that inside space. So this time he chose to get up. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he would be staying there for a while longer. Here I chose to, now I did the exact same thing. Obviously he knows what's coming at this point because we're watching each other compete. He did an excellent job of pulling his leg back and lowering his center of gravity so that I couldn't pull myself underneath. You can see I do the exact same thing. And I managed to pull him, but he knows exactly what leg I'm going for, and so he kicks his right leg back and puts the knee down on the mat, so I'm unable to pull myself underneath, getting meaningful lever access. And so by also lowering himself, his alignment didn't get broken as much as it did with the other guys, where they really had to post their arm out far, and it created that vulnerability. He dropped into a tight little ball and was able to start immediately working. Here he goes for the body lock. I'm working that overhook. I'm trying to make sure that he's unable to control the inside space very effectively. I like body locking too. So I'm looking to kind of get on my side there and elevate, but very tall. It's hard to off balance him. He's very in control of his body. So there's a situation that's going to happen later in this match, and I'm going to try and steal some footage from his YouTube channel that he has of that match because he has a better angle of it. But we ended up in a similar position where my right shin is in between his legs, and he's kind of like in that headquarters position where my left leg is on the outside. I was not as exhausted yet. I was still, for the fact that I think I only had about 2 minutes of mat time before going into this match and lots of rest time in between, I was still quite tired going in just because I couldn't ever actually calm myself down that much. But there's, I was smarter here and I just made sure to pummel my leg back in. And it's something that I don't do later because I fucked up. So here, my left leg comes back inside, looking for it, and we're back into battle here. Here I'm trying to kazushi him a bit with my long leg. I choose to go into mantis guard. Here controlling him. Here I managed to off balance him, and he chooses to sit down. And this is, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, like, I was going for these certain movements, and when I look back on this video, I'm like, okay, I was actually getting some decent responses from him, where I was able to actually have him sit down and stop being the aggressor there, and I should be looking to pursue more attacks. And also when he gets back up, I should have gone back to mantis guard, and I should have continued going through that. But in my head in the match, I was like, man, I'm starting to get tired, and I haven't had like I'm looking for a measure of success that's unrealistic, where it's like I want like that big jump that goes straight to a submission, something that's going to save my ass and it's going to potentially end the fight. And so instead of being disciplined and keeping to the stuff that I've been working on, what I'm going to do later is I'm going to reach out of desperation for something that I haven't been working on very much, and I do so from a bad position that then completely fucks me for the rest of the match. And this is the kind of thing that getting used to competition is the thing that'll help you. But you got to think when you're going into these matches, like, you game plan this stuff, you practice it in like your little fight camp leading up to this competition, and you try your best not to deviate from that path. Obviously there needs to be a bit of openness that if something goes in a different direction than you're expecting, you take the opportunities as they come up. but I didn't really actually have much of an opportunity, and I just went for something at the wrong time. It's, once again, the nature of competition. So here he sits back down again. I look to kind of pummel my leg there, as I was kind of looking to come up there, but you could see that he started to look to attack that leg, and I just didn't want to even entertain that battle, so I chose to back out. So he comes back up on top. Now here I should have been just controlling that inside space. There, we're back into that position. De La Riva ankle lock. What the fuck was I doing? Like, my instructor, Rob Bernacki, very good at this. He's been working on it for years. I don't like this submission. It's not something I look for at all, but for some reason I was like, oh, it's kind of here, I'm gonna wrap around it. I would not, for me personally, I'm gonna try to never do that again unless I actually work on this. So this is me starting to deviate off of that plan because I'm getting fucking tired and I'm starting to, everything's falling off the rails. So here I managed to kazushi him, which is cool. So I managed, that's mostly all I was looking to try and do from here. I'm not planning on ankle locking him. And then this is where I'll try and get footage stolen off of his channel, Lapel Arts, and I just give up. I reach over for a shoulder clamp on the other side because he had his hand on the mat, but my hips were turned the wrong way. It was too much for me to reach, and I didn't have the butterfly hook once I turned onto that side because he was in that headquarters position and my leg was in the outside position.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
And so I just ended up conceding into not even a half guard because he just basically fell into a knee cut. And we can see how just because I turned there, he ends up in chest-to-chest connection. And yeah, life really sucks there. So, I mean, Lucas is very talented. And he did a lot of good things to control through that pass as well as control the positions afterwards. But I mean, I gotta give myself 90% credit on setting him up for that pass because I done fucked up. So here you can see I kind of hooked his ankle there, but he's in that knee cut. And at this point, I'm just like, God damn it, this sucks. I am so tired. So I'm just looking to keep an elbow framed against him here. Right now, my elbow's locked out, so I'm framing at his hip, being very careful that he can't cut his hip and hurt me. But like, this is just me trying to rest at this point because there's still, you can see there's over 3 minutes on the clock still, and it's submission only, no points. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna just try and hold this. And so I'm looking to try and kind of off balance him here. He does a great job sinking his hips back down tight against my hips. I'm looking to mobilize. I managed to get his ankle a little bit again here, but he's very skilled at being able to control that. And he starts to cut over top, so I'm trying to go into a deep half situation. Now here he's threatening, like when he came up there, he had threatened some rear triangle stuff on somebody earlier, so I was like, okay, I gotta be super careful about this. I'm looking to pull myself back underneath, constantly off balancing. And so I'm not unhappy with my defenses here and being able to do this, but I end up putting myself in a bad position that then gets triangled. I get caught in the triangle. So the mistake I made primarily off of that triangle is that I am used to a certain attribute advantage that I have where being 6'5", almost 2 meters tall, I can frame people out and have ridiculous distance. That habit cost me in this fight because he has the same attribute advantages as me, and so we basically cancel each other out. And so when I built up, where I would usually keep my elbow in really tight on top of his leg to prevent that triangle, I guess what I usually will do against people is that I will post that hand on the mat happily and have my elbow framing across their hip because I know I can keep such a distance that as they try to throw their legs around me, they can't break my posture enough and I'll still be able to posture right out of that. Well, his leg is really long as well, and so I felt it wrap around the back of my head and I was like, oh fuck, that didn't work out. And so that was something that, once again, a habit that I have in the gym that didn't translate well into competition, and I have to work to fix that. So here, what I was happy with is that I was kind of baiting because my arm was underneath. I knew that there was a risk, like it's a little bit hard for me to frame out. And so I was looking to mobilize my hips to entice him to start going for the back. So that then when I would reverse and go the opposite direction he's going to drop underneath me. And it worked quite well up until getting submitted. But we can see here, as I start to lift, and I invert myself, he starts to throw in his left hook. And so he's got the hooks, but he doesn't actually have upper body control because I'm a little bit low. And so legs are actually the secondary control of the body with back control. The upper body, the chest to back connection is the most important part. So if I spin fast enough, I can actually still detach from this. And so because he's locked himself up tight, as I go the other direction, we can see that now he's fallen beside me and I'm able to actually start building myself up. Now I had to be very careful that I didn't turn myself into a triangle from that position. So we can see that as I rotate, I pull my left arm out once we get there. I build up onto my right elbow. I should have, because he's also on his left elbow at this point, I should have kept my arm in closer to be blocking that left leg so that he couldn't pull out, or also working to try and build up, like trying to get my left knee in between his legs to stop that. And I'm not listening to it with volume right here, but like right around at this moment, you can hear Matt Kwan, training partner of mine, who actually won the entire competition plus the absolute division. He's like, watch out for the triangle. And literally like a second later, I get caught with the triangle.
220 left. Watch the triangle here. Watch the triangle here.
So here he throws it. I mean, honestly, there's a part here where I'll admit that there's almost like mentally giving up in that situation where I was so exhausted working out of those bad positions and that onslaught of attacks that as I was building up and he caught me and broke me down, I started to get pulled down. I was just like, it's over. Where I should keep fighting, but this is once you start to hit that wall and you're just getting that exhausted and stuff. I mean, geez, yeah, it's hard to push through that, and so that's another thing that I got to check here. So he starts to adjust, yeah, and then I start to sit down and he starts to turn immediately. Like I was concerned about him coming up into a mounted triangle, and so I started to push back that direction, and I was going to sit back down again, but I ended up just kind of driving in, and he adjusted his hips very well right into a tight triangle. So excellent work, Lucas. Great match. I learned a lot from that, and I'm looking forward to having a rematch again in the future, or even just training with you guys, you and your wife, at your guys' personal gym. That'd be awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's obviously a little bit more to discuss. There's more for me to reflect on, and obviously I'm human, so I'm going to lose matches as well as win them. And losing isn't the end of the world, because I managed to get to go out, push myself out of my comfort zone. I got to learn a lot. I got to see a lot of people, which is amazing after the COVID pandemic, and to actually see all these people that I've trained jiu-jitsu with over the years was amazing. And the most important thing to me was that I didn't get hurt. And so I'm able to get training again, and I'm starting to get prepared now for Nogi Worlds. So if you guys have any kind of interest in competing, I encourage you to do it. If you don't have an interest in it, you don't have to do it, doesn't matter. And like myself, you can not be interested in competing for most of your time in jiu-jitsu and then start changing at different points. Like, you don't feel that just because you haven't competed in a long period of time or never had the interest, that means that you shouldn't. And even as like a brown belt or black belt, while you're going to be at a disadvantage competing against people that have potentially been doing it throughout all their belts, I encourage you to try. And obviously it's easy to have that ego and be like, oh man, as a black belt, if I go out there and I look like a fool, I'm gonna look like an idiot, and that's gonna suck, or it's gonna hurt my credibility. It won't. Like, as long as you don't go out and defecate yourself in the first like 5 seconds getting choked out or something like that, and even then, who really cares? Own that, get back out there and try it again. I know that I had certain doubts when I was going out there for the first time, but I'm so glad that I did it. And so I have to encourage you guys that if you have any interest in competing, push yourselves.